Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's take up the daily quiz for today. The first question: which of the following statements are correct? Tora people are a Dravidian ethnic group who live in the Nilgiri mountains of Tamil Nadu. They traditionally live in settlements called Mund. Their economy was primarily pastoral. All the three given statements are correct. Option D is the right answer. This question was taken up because the Hindu carries an image on the front page depicting the Toda community and their rituals. The Toda people are a Dravidian ethnic group found in the Nilgiri mountain ranges of Tamil Nadu and have even been designated as one of the particularly vulnerable tribal groups of Tamil Nadu. The Toda people traditionally live in settlements called the Mund, which you can see in this image over here. And these settlements often consist of 3 to 7 small thatched huts, which are constructed in the shape of half barrels, and they are located across the slopes of the pasture. The primary occupation of this tribe is rearing buffaloes, and hence they are essentially a pastoral community. The Toda tribe can be found in the higher reaches of the Nilgiris, where they farm buffaloes for dairy production, and they also worship the buffalo as a part of their religion and rituals, as it provides the community with basic sustenance. During the 20th century, the Toda population was in the range of just 700 to 900 people, but over the last few decades, their population has improved to around 2000 plus, and this community has been of great interest for anthropologists and linguists, as the study of this tribe, their culture, and their practices has helped in the development of the fields of social anthropology and ethnomusicology. Now let's look at the second question. Changu Glacier Lake is located in Jammu and Kashmir, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand. The correct answer is option B. The Changu Glacier Lake is located in Sikkim, along India's borders with China and Bhutan. The Changu Lake, also known as the Smogo Lake, is a glacier lake in East Sikkim district and is also a very popular tourist attraction. This lake is located close to India's international borders with China and Bhutan, and it is known for changing its colors during different seasons, which makes it a very popular tourist attraction. As the lake is located at a sensitive strategic location, both Indians and foreigners who are trying to visit the area require special permits, and there is even a border trade market present nearby for promoting local border trade between India and China. This strategic lake in Sikkim is in news because, according to this article in the Hindu, hundreds of tourists have been stuck near the Changu Glacier Lake following heavy snowfall in the region. So, the Indian Army has already begun a rescue operation to reach out to the stranded tourists who have been stuck in different parts of the Changu region. Now, let's look at the third question. Which of the following statements are correct with regard to Mission Sagar of the Indian Navy? It is an extension of the Sagar doctrine of India's foreign policy. Under the mission, India has been providing humanitarian, medical, and defense assistance to countries in the Indian Ocean and Eastern Africa. It involves extensive military exercises in the Indian Ocean with the navies of US and France. Amongst the given statements, the third statement is incorrect. So option B is the right answer. See, after the breakout of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Indian Navy launched Mission Sagar in order to deliver humanitarian and medical assistance to important countries in the Indian Ocean region. Through this mission, India sent out medical aid, oxygen supplies, and other essential items to countries such as Maldives, Seychelles, Mauritius, Comoros, and Madagascar. Under the initial edition of the mission, such essential medical supplies were sent out to these countries, and later India has expanded the mission to cover important East African countries as well. This outreach by India is in line with the Sagar doctrine of Prime Minister Modi, under which India has guaranteed security and growth for all in the Indian Ocean region. In the latest edition of Mission Sagar, India has reached out to Mozambique. An Indian naval ship, INS Kesari, has entered the port of Maputo, which is located at the opening of the strategic Mozambique Channel. This latest mission of the Indian Navy under Mission Sagar to Mozambique has been reported in this article, according to which India has not only handed over food aid and medical equipment to Mozambique, but has even supplied defense equipment to strengthen the country's fight against terrorism. Along with providing essential medical supplies and food supplies, India has also handed over two fast interceptor crafts and other self defense equipment to the armed forces of Mozambique in order to strengthen the capacity of the country's armed forces so that it can deal effectively with the threats being posed by the Islamic State in Central and Eastern Africa. Now let's look at the fourth question. It is a protectionist tariff that a domestic government imposes on foreign imports that it believes are priced below fair market value. This tariff is known as countervailing duty, anti dumping duty, import duty, or customs duty. The correct answer is anti dumping duty. Option B corresponds to the definition that has been provided over here. See, we have taken up this question on anti dumping duty because, according to this article in the Hindu, India has imposed anti dumping duties on five Chinese goods. See, in international trade, dumping is considered to be a process wherein a company exports a certain product at a price that is significantly lower than the price it normally charges in its home country or in its domestic market. So, when such cheaply priced products are dumped in our domestic market by a foreign company, then it affects the interests of our domestic producers. So, in order to protect the interests of domestic producers and local businesses, countries are allowed to impose a duty known as anti dumping duty. It is essentially a protectionist tariff that a domestic government imposes on foreign imports that it believes are priced below fair market value. The imposition of this duty is allowed under the WTO. Under the WTO norms, a country has the powers to investigate whether another country or a foreign exporter is resorting to the practice of dumping, which could undermine the interests of domestic industry and domestic producers. So, once dumping is established, the domestic government is empowered under the WTO rules to impose anti dumping duties as a countermeasure. These measures are allowed by the WTO to ensure that fair trade and a level playing field is provided to the domestic industry so that they can compete with cheaper imports that might be flooding the domestic market. In the case of India, anti dumping investigation is carried out by the DGTR or the Directorate General of Trade Remedies. If the DGTR establishes that dumping is taking place, then it can recommend the imposition of anti dumping duties. Based on this recommendation, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs under the Finance Ministry finally issues a notification providing for the imposition of anti dumping duties. Now let's look at the fifth question. Which project is India looking to develop at Trincomalee along with Sri Lanka? Nuclear power plant, solar and wind power projects, housing for displaced Tamils, oil tank farms. The correct answer is option D. This question was taken up because, according to this article in the Hindu, India and Sri Lanka are all set to sign a deal on the development of oil tank farms at Trincomalee. See, in Sri Lanka, India has already executed several important strategic and economic projects, and this has brought India into direct competition with China. This map depicts the Indian and Chinese projects, and as you can see, India has invested in the revival of the Kake Senturai port. India has rebuilt the Northern Railway track and the Palale Civilian Airport. India has also built 50,000 houses as a part of the Northern Housing Project to rehabilitate the Tamil internally displaced people of the Sri Lankan Civil War. But since 1987, that is, since the India Sri Lanka Peace Accord was signed, India was very interested to rebuild the oil tank farms located at the strategic Trincomalee port. Trincomalee is located in the eastern part of Sri Lanka over here, and these oil tank farms at Trincomalee were built during the World War by the British. But as these oil tanks had depleted over time, India wanted to work with Sri Lanka to rebuild them. But the project kept running into controversies as a result of the underlying tensions and differences in the India Sri Lanka relationship. But finally, after several months of negotiations, both the countries have finalized the terms of the agreement, and very soon an agreement will be signed which would allow India and Sri Lanka to jointly develop the oil tank farms located at the strategic Trincomalee region. Then I'm also sharing this map, which I have taken from the website of the Indian High Commission to Colombo, which clearly depicts all the major investments made by India in Sri Lanka. Now let's take up a question from the 2019 prelims paper. Consider the following statements. The United Nations Convention Against Corruption has a protocol against the smuggling of migrants by land, sea, and air. The UNCAC is the first ever legally binding global anti corruption instrument. A highlight of the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, or UNTOC, is the inclusion of a specific chapter aimed at returning assets to their rightful owners from whom they had been taken illicitly. The UN Office on Drugs and Crime is mandated by its member states to assist in the implementation of both the conventions. See, amongst the given statements, statement 2 and 4 are correct, so option C is the right answer. Statements 1 and 3 are incorrect because they have been interchanged. The protocol against the smuggling of migrants by land, sea, and air is included under the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime. It's not part of the Convention Against Corruption. Whereas the UN Convention Against Corruption is not only the first ever legally binding anti corruption instrument, but it also has a specific chapter aimed at returning the assets to their rightful owners from whom they had been taken illicitly. And the UN Office on Drugs and Crime has been mandated to ensure the implementation of both the conventions. So statements 2 and 4 are correct. Option C is the right answer. Now, coming to the fact of the day, let's talk about an eminent personality who passed away, and the Hindu even carries a detailed article that pays tribute to Desmond Tutu. Desmond Tutu, who passed away yesterday in South Africa, was a South African cleric and a bishop, known for his lifelong struggle against apartheid and known for his contribution to South Africa and to the world as a human rights activist. He was one of the most prominent figures in South Africa back in the 1980s who opposed the apartheid system of racial segregation and discrimination, under which the blacks had been targeted, oppressed, and dominated by the white minority rule. As an activist, he firmly believed in the principles of Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi, and he championed non-violent protests against the apartheid system. He even supported foreign economic pressure by major countries in order to force majoritarian governments and autocratic governments to stop harassing and oppressing the weaker communities. He used his influential position to call for international sanctions against the then South African government, which practiced the apartheid system. And later, he even extended his support for the cause of human rights around the world. In recognition of his efforts in fighting the apartheid system in South Africa and in opposing white minority rule, he was even recognized with the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984. In fact, it was Desmond Tutu who even referred to South Africa as a rainbow nation when Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa in 1994. After he retired from his role as a religious leader, he was appointed as the head of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate the atrocities that had been committed by the South African government during the apartheid rule. Through his leadership, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission uncovered the horrors of the apartheid system and how the blacks had been targeted and oppressed by the white minority in what constituted one of the gravest human rights violations. His legendary fight against the apartheid system and his fight for human rights around the world, and his firm belief in the principle of non-violence inspired an entire generation of leaders across Africa and around the world who also embraced his principles and belief systems in their respective liberation struggles. So, with this, I would like to conclude the discussion for today. Thanks for watching.